Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. I hope that you are all well. We are back again with. I think this may be number either part 6 or 7, to the point where I've lost count, and we've not really got. I think we've gone over just 2 hours in the chat, in the chat log. Um, the whole of Lornography, Lorne Armstrong's chat with an imaginary girl, which spanned a month, just for a bit of context in case you needed it. Just a quick shout out to Mr. Heisenberg, who you're probably aware of this weekend, who managed to raise a shitload of money for Betty, one of Lorne's real victims. So fantastic work. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to, not through any fault of his own, do the full 24 hours, not through lack of trying, but unfortunately his stream got taken down a couple of times, which sucked. But I think it's been up to a few people that have been streaming and whatnot. So it's just one of them things, isn't it? So we'll see what happens. Hopefully this will be okay. It might have been because of the content he was playing. He was playing some of the calls and whatnot. So just let me know, guys, in the chat if everything's okay with the audio. Just to introduce my guests and friends, we've got our usual suspects of Tiffany Lockhart and Shin Squala.
Hello.
Hello.
And who's been joining us for the last few weeks, Lorne's original nemesis. Unfortunately, not the real Amanda James, but Amanda James is here anyway.
Hi.
Not
I
to
love
have
you.
a go at you, Amanda, but of course, I do obviously wish that we could get the real Amanda James on, because that would be one heck of a I mean, that person had a lot to fucking answer for.
Oh, me
That would be
too.
great.
I would love to hear from her.
Or him.
Yeah?
Or him.
Or it. May have just been a Russian bot.
Can we take a moment and just take in the majesty of this new picture?
Well, to be fair, that is the reason that I stuck this on as the picture, because even though I've done a video about it, we can still maybe go into detail a little bit more about that brilliant picture. Because it's spectacular.
I mean, yeah, he's morphing into something, but it's like he's not supposed to be drinking now, obviously, and I assume he isn't. And it looks like it looks like that's how you would look if you were still on a bender. It's weird. It's
well,
like
he's still on a bender.
Yeah, he's all inflamed, and his nose looks like it was recently broken or something. Tiffany, I asked you about that. What do you think?
I don't think so. I think that's just the way that it is. I was going to look at some of his other pictures to see if I could tell a difference, if it's more crooked. But I know that I had noticed it before, that it is slightly slanted.
And flatter.
At the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does. If you look at him from the side, his nose definitely has a different shape than what you would imagine it would. It's sort of, the bottom of it sort of hooks down. It looks like a witch's nose.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
You know?
It's kind of a family thing. I think a lot of the Armstrongs have that similar nose.
It might be. Yeah, I don't know. But the one thing that is missing from this picture that was always one of my favorites is the staple.
Yeah.
I don't know why that always made it funny, was that there was always a staple in the corner.
Yeah, but he made up for it with his choice of wardrobe. This is
Of
awesome.
course, yeah. That's great. The tank top.
What the hell was it? This was in April, maybe? What was he? It's freezing up there, too. What's he doing going to a... Oh, by the way, how does he do these? Does he actually go to the sheriff's office, get a mugshot, or does he have to bring in something from Walgreens, like a passport photos? How does he do that?
Yeah, he goes to a place that does passport photos, and then he has to bring it to the sheriff's office.
And that's the best one on his composite. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
He likes it.
I would suggest that there's a lot of photos that would be considerably worse than that. Can you imagine a photograph whilst he's just finished at Tony and Wendy's?
Probably look better. I don't know.
I don't know.
He'd probably look happier. I imagine he'd have those rosy cheeks.
Yeah,
and then he'd
kind of look like a Picasso painting.
Maybe he'd smile. That'd be kind of cool if he smiled in one of these. Not just a smirk, but an actual smile.
Oh, he won't show his teeth.
I know.
They should make him.
Doesn't
Sorry.
doesn't years of heavy drinking like do something to your nose? Can it make
Yeah.
it swell or something?
I
Yeah, like,
have
what is-
heard of that. Yeah,
Oh,
where
what
it makes it kind of, I don't know what it would be called, but it sort of makes it like a bulbous nose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You know what I mean? It
something
gets
like
bigger.
that.
I think
Right.
J.P. Getty had that nose, or one of those guys, Rockefeller. One of those guys had a big bulbous kind of cauliflower nose.
Yeah.
But that's definitely heading in some direction here. Okay, well, again, this is the best picture he could bring to them. I can understand
Yeah,
if they just.
I don't
took
think
the
he
shot.
sat at home, Shin, with a series of photographs going, right, okay, which is my best photograph to put on the sex offenders registry?
Yes, he would. I think he would. Absolutely.
I think he's kind of like, well, I was going to say I think he's realised that the tale that Ramona told him about finding his picture on the RSO
Yeah,
website.
exactly.
I would,
This is his
I
social
would
media.
hope that he knows now that that was bullshit. Although maybe I'm giving him too much credit.
Yeah. Okay. But I think this is his this is like his what do you call it? When actors give you their shots, for
Oh, the headshot.
headshot. Yeah, this is his headshot for
Yeah.
for social media.
This is
know.
what you would get on stage if he was a country music star. This is the guy.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to say. He still has that tan line, it looks like, unless that's the in the winter. I mean,
No,
from
it
the
looks
winter,
like
which is weird.
it looks like he does have a tan line. And then he has a lot of bags under his eyes.
Oh,
He
that
looks-
happened. I've been
What
doing.
would you say? He looks
Sorry.
probably about what, 32 here?
Yeah.
Yeah, he could definitely 17, like tennis boy. Exactly. Looks
Yeah.
just
The
like-
outer edges of his eyes just get lower and lower.
Can
With
I ask
every
you
picture.
two ladies, right? As an honest opinion, with no bias, because he's a dirty, perverted sex offender, how does he rank? If you're going to give him a score on 1 to 10, let's say, like me and Shin are obviously 10. Where does
Yes,
this guy rank?
he's a billionaire philanthropist.
Honest opinion, right? Like one
Well-
being, I don't know, some kind of genetic experiment that was born without a face. What would Lorne get?
If he was a billionaire philanthropist, then his score would go up a little bit, but he's not.
But no, we're saying
So-
like from his
Right.
current. But I'm talking looks wise though. Forget his, his life
Right.
circumstances.
Right. Well, you gotta kind of wash that away with something big, Andrew, in order for them to not think about what he actually is. You got to go the other direction. So he's a billionaire philanthropist who loves his animals and mom still. Okay, go.
Then he might be a 1.5.
Ooh.
Ooh,
Wow.
yeah. So you're saying there's a chance?
Don't let him hear this. He'll be on cloud 9.
Yeah. I would probably give him. I would be generous if I didn't know anything about him at all. Maybe like a 3.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I think Amanda's got a little prejudice in her.
You've got a crush on him, Tiffany.
Maybe.
A 3.
Yeah.
Remember
I
he-
think that.
Sorry.
I think in order to give an accurate assessment, you would also have to see him from the side, and that's where he would turn into like a Quasimodo type of a guy.
Body included too. You got to add that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
his
he's
feet.
he's not appealing.
Oh, and his feet. Oh,
You gotta
God,
throw his
that
feet
just
in
killed
there.
it.
That comes with the deal. That
Lower
comes with
my
the package.
score.
Billionaire. Remember, billionaire. Okay.
I'm going to lower it. I would say a 1.
Oh, he's
Isn't it
lovely.
great? Like we could talk about a fucking sex offender's nose for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, unbelievable.
I'm gonna get a coffee mug with that picture.
Yeah, I know. Wouldn't that be great? His nose is quite massive. It is quite a big nose, isn't it? Does look.
Yeah.
You know what? There is some discoordination. I don't know why that particular word seemed apt, but it veers off slightly to his left. Like it does look like it's been broken at some point, or is it just?
Mm-hmm.
Is he not exactly head on with the camera? So is he not? Is he not? Because he's
Yeah,
at a slight
true.
angle. Do you understand what I'm saying?
The only thing you could do is follow his bridge. You know, it seems that's where a lot of broken noses are evident, right around the top there.
Yeah.
You can actually see the bump or the. That's what I got, but it seems like his nose flattened, like his cartilage is missing or something. It's turning into a elephant trunk or something. I don't know what's going on with that thing.
Yeah, we would have to take a look at his younger pictures and see if, his nose has that shape. But I do remember from, back, I think originally, his nose did have a crookedness to it.
Right.
Can you imagine if we had a full stream just analysing Lorne's penis?
Oh my God.
Well, this would be more of a second generational thing. I mean, your kids would be beautiful, Amanda. Think about it. You have to put up with him, but I'm sure your kids would be beautiful with the genetics mixed in there.
No.
I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things. I have no idea.
Poor Amanda.
No thanks. I know.
As far as his eyes are concerned, he just has a lot of extra skin in his eyelid.
Oh, he
And
does, yeah.
Yeah, as he gets older, it's going to get more and more. He could have that removed, and if he had an eye lift, all of that would be taken away.
But what do you do about the Cro-Magnon brow? It's kind of getting a little more prominent now.
Yeah, I just noticed that. I think I can see where his hat usually sits.
Yeah.
His ears are very asymmetrical too.
Yeah,
I wonder if one is lower because he would always wear that headset on one side. So it kind of deformed him a little bit.
It could. I mean, he does seem to wear it all day, every day.
I'm surprised he's not wearing it in the picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we agree that obviously he looked a lot better at the time of this chat, 37 years old, when Kayla was basically required to stare at him the entire time. He didn't really, I don't think maybe it's me, but I don't think his features changed that much. Anyway.
He's melted.
No, he doesn't. I know what you mean. There's not that. I mean, how many years ago? It's nearly, 14 years ago now?
Yeah.
13 years ago. There's not that much. He's been through quite a bit. 2 stints in prison, failed rape class, numerous bankruptcies, numerous more failed fake relationships.
Takes a toll on you. Yeah.
You would think that it was taking more of a toll on him than what it actually has, but he's still kicking. The blood's still circulating. He's still got his crazy schemes and numerous other fake failed relationships on the horizon, no doubt. Fucking hell.
But this is the face.
What a life, eh? What a life.
This is the face he kept insisting to Kayla that she thinks he's cute over and over and over again, and all these other kinds of things. That's what kills me about most of these predators. Just to think that they would imagine that a young 13-year-old girl would be interested in troll-looking guys like this. That's just crazy.
It does,
I mean, if that's not a red flag, I don't know what it is.
But that's what desperation does to you, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not. They're not coming from any logical sort of standpoint that one would assume. Anyway, shall we get into the chat? Are you guys up to date on where we left off?
Up and running.
Good stuff. So, that's great, fantastic. Windows update coming up. That's great. So just to kind of give people a bit of context as to where we left off now, if you're not familiar with this, which I'm pretty sure everybody is, well, just say hello to a few people in the chat. Johnny Utah is here. Hello, dude. And Jesse Brosnan, who keeps telling me he's in Thailand, so I'm ridiculously fucking jealous because I'm going to have to wait until January to go back. Archive the Third is here. Where's Most? Hey, dude.
Where's Most?
T-Cap Recipes is in the house. And Clobber as well. Clobber, I believe, this weekend has surpassed 2K subscribers, which is great. And I think he's probably got more than me now, the fucker. It's the blasted internet's fault. Do you know, I forgot to mention, like, when we were talking about Lorne's favourite quotes the other week, I forgot probably one of my favourites when he goes, I fucking hate the internet. It's like, oh, it's just so, there's so much comedy on so many levels contained. You've got the comedy of just him ranting. You've got the fact that he completely doesn't understand the internet. It's like, it's a little bit like screaming, I fucking hate gravity. You know what I mean? It's like, what the fuck? It just means he totally doesn't understand his own downfall. It's a little bit like going bankrupt and going, I fucking hate currency. You know what I mean?
Hey, credit cards suck. Another blow.
That was a good one. Anyway, here's a crack of that one. So, we were up to the part where, so here that I've just highlighted. Lorne, this is the first, we're just over 2 hours into the chat, guys. Is that right?
Yes.
Started at 9:22 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's quite significant, this part, because it's the first time he's gone into detail specifically about sex. Now, he's hinted at it numerous times, like when he goes, have you seen anything that makes you go, wow, or something like that. This is where he really gets to business, shall we say, in his sort of world, of course. He's in... You know, I was thinking, this is probably... at this point, as sick as it is to think this way, the happiest that Lorne will have ever been in his life.
Definitely.
At this moment in time.
Or when he got to this point with his other victims, too. But definitely, this is the happiest that he is in the chat. He's been working on this for 2 hours to get to this point.
Yeah. He never got past 4 lines before. This is, you know, one of the things about him is knowing now what we know about him from get-go, from after high, from Your Little Cutie. That was his intention. His intention was never to protect her, secure her, to talk to her because nobody else. His whole intention, it's 100% clear in my mind, was to groom the child and engage her in this activity with everyone now. I mean, there's no benefit of the doubt now when I look at this.
I don't think there ever was, really.
Yeah, I know, but then you look at the other 2 predators he was working on too, Kimmy Cope. He went pretty far with them too, by the way. I thought probably surprised him, but they only took him to a half a page or so.
Is there anybody in the chat or anybody here that has got access to the chats that Lorne had with Disney Girl and Kimmy? Because I would like to do a separate. I think there's only like one page, maybe even just one line that he uttered, but I can't find it anywhere, and I just want to go.
You know what we should do, Andrew? That's coming up. That comes up on the 21st. We're not even close to that.
But those chat logs are not in here.
No, I know that, but there is a gap, and I think it would be good. We'll have time to find those by the time when we get to that. This is what he was doing for Kayla.
It's gonna take forever to get to that point.
I know. That's what I'm saying. So I have it somewhere.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that it's out there, so there's no problem getting hold of that. I just think it's interesting, that's all, because it's the same, as I understand it, it's just the same tactic that he used, and it's interesting that he was still trying it on with other people, even though he thought he got Kayla in the bag. I find that quite interesting. It's like, was he just... What drives him to do that? Is he... as many victims as possible? Is he so desperate to get his end away with anything? Because, let's just say, from a personal perspective, right, when I've been on dating apps and whatnot, and I think everybody does it, it's not anything unusual, you get, you want to keep your options open, so you talk to multiple people at the same time, and then you line up a few dates, because, you can't, you've no idea where it's going to go. It's just the way it is. But with this thing, obviously, this isn't a normal situation. He's trying to like get as many of these people as he can. It's just the way. I suppose it's just to guarantee that he's going to get. It's more of a guarantee of him getting this, whatever it is after this gratification that he's getting from, fraternising with younger girls. It's not easy for us to comprehend because it's pretty sick.
Right.
But, yeah. Okay. So. Okay. Well. What? Oh. Okay. So following me so far.
It's going to be
I
on the
know
test.
that.
That's why he's asking you. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's saying here, I know that, in response to what he said there about, okay, when a boy and girl have sex, so she's saying that obviously she's familiar with how biological reproduction works. Okay, well, what don't you know then? What it's like? I mean, is it fun? And then let's see how long. There's a good kind of 30 seconds for Lorne to get back to her there. Don't you do... Oh, this is a cracker. This is a fucking great line, this, isn't it? It's so transparent, though, isn't it?
Don't you do without me. Don't you do without anybody but me. That's basically what that is.
Yeah. But I think it's also quite... Obviously, it's just another I'm going to protect you tactic, isn't it?
Is that the first time he said that? Don't do this with a boy until you're ready to?
Yeah, because it's the first time that he's gone into detail about sex,
but
isn't it?
I do think that he did say something like that before.
Well, he said that about talking to people on the internet before. Now it's having sex with boys when you're not ready.
I thought he mentioned it when he was talking to her about what she's done so far with Derek.
Yeah.
And he said there are other kids your age who have done a lot more. Yeah. I could be wrong, but...
No, I think he did.
And he also tried to introduce her to sex through rape. That didn't go, I think, the way he planned. They do even worse than that, rape. And I'm sure she would have...
Yeah. That was to open the door onto the subject of sex in general, yeah.
Yeah. And then this is quite interesting. So the decoy here is getting quite specific, and this is, I would say, sophisticated way of sophisticated tactics on behalf of the decoy. Jesse says it hurt first time. They're just mirroring what someone of that age would say when they've got a group of friends, and that is obviously going to draw Lorne in more to get quite graphic a little bit. And then he comes back again with, promise me you won't do it until you're absolutely ready to, okay. I don't think that... Do you think there's any part of him here that's actually being serious about that? And I don't mean to kind of protect her, because obviously that's not any part of his motivation. But what I mean is, do you think there's any of that is kind of motivated by him wanting her to himself rather than trying to play the protector? Do you understand what I mean?
I think it's definitely not a protector, but he's trying to establish himself as her wanting him to be the one to do it with. Just like Blue Boy had made a comment. He said, don't do it with a boy, but that doesn't mean she can't do it with a 37-year-old man.
Yeah. He thinks he's a boy, too, in this thing.
No, he does. He wants to be on her level. But I think that he's just making it seem like, don't do it until you're ready, okay? Because that's also something that people will say all the time, whether it's in school or from parents, like you have to be ready to do it the first time. And, so that just kind of goes along with an adult talking to a child. But I think also it's getting her to be compliant with what he wants. So if she's saying yes, and she's saying that she wants it, then she's waiting until she's ready, and she's going to be ready with him.
Point of clarification: has he exposed himself yet?
I don't think he has.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Obviously, that's coming up because he's saying here, did my cam go through for you? Now, I think it's a great time to mention that, Shim, because Is it any coincidence that he's mentioning the cam at the same point that he's really... This is the first time in detail that he's talked about sex. We're spanning like 3 minutes in the chat log. And then he's mentioning the cam. So it's kind of, I believe it's like him leading up to... Because, it's all geared towards him exposing himself, her doing whatever he gets her to do later on, and it's all part of the grooming process, isn't it? Oh, let's talk about sex. Oh, do you want to see my camera? It's all part of the process, isn't it?
Well, yeah. One of the things that is it became obvious to me recently, and sorry if it came to other people much earlier, is that he will pull this, I'm your security, I'm the only person you could trust, make sure you don't have, sex with any other boys till you're ready. Watch out for all those weirdos out there. And then he proceeds to be the weirdo and trying to have the sex. And the way he justifies that is it's okay if there's feelings involved. In other words, I love you. That's why it's okay. I'm doing it, and I'm different from those other weirdos. And also, he's imputing that she loves him a million times. So that's what makes this situation different, and him not a hypocrite. The emotional aspect to it makes me different from the other weirdos because you have a crush on me. Crap like that. He gives himself permission all the time.
I wonder if he was saying that partially, the promise me you won't do it until you're absolutely ready to try to get her more curious about sex, because he, if something's forbidden to a kid, then they're going to want to know more about it. They're going to find it more
reverse psychology. Yeah.
Right.
See, the reason why I asked whether he had exposed himself before is because he's already presuming to make her promise him this guy she doesn't even know. Why does she have to promise him anything? And I'm assuming
he does that a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can understand that after he thinks he's in a relationship, but his relationships don't begin until they've accepted his cam images of looking at his dick, and that is the same thing as proposing marriage to him or consensual relationship. Just the fact that you weren't grossed out by it and shut me down right away. That means we're together now. And then he could start saying, okay, promise me this. This is a little early for her to be making promises.
Well, didn't he ask her to, like, right off the bat when he said, promise me you won't ever give anyone on the internet your real
right.
name? And
Mm-hmm.
So he does that a lot. Like, he's an authority figure in her life. Like, he can give her permission to do things, and he can ask her to promise him certain things. It's
like walking up to a stranger on the street and saying, promise me you'll have a good breakfast tomorrow. Promise me that now. I mean, who the hell are you? Who the hell is he?
Yeah, good question. Who the hell is he? I know I'll talk about it when it comes up later in the chat, but there's a part when he gives her permission to do something that her parents don't allow her to do. And that's exactly how I felt when I read that.
Yeah.
Like, who do you think you are to allow her to do something that her parents won't let her do?
Yeah, it's such arrogance, isn't it? And I think you've mentioned that before, Shin. I think we probably all agree that it's one of the hardest things to get over when you're looking at Lorne and trying to see the humanity in him, if there is any, is that the level of arrogance and the fact that he just dismisses his parents. Dustin does it a lot in his chat, even worse than Lorne, I believe, actually, if you could actually do that. But that's another matter. But the fact that it really pisses me off so much that somebody like this can come along and have the arrogance to think that this girl is loved by her parents and he's just going to come along and ruin her like that. It's difficult enough for a parent who, like, if you've got a daughter and they start to see boys and, boys their own age, and then they start, sleeping with people and whatnot. It's always difficult for a parent because they're growing up and you see them as your little girl and whatever. To even comprehend somebody like him, who's just a down-and-out loser, to come along and just think that he can do this is the height of arrogance. It's like it doesn't... This is why people like him are so, despised.
Like a home invasion. It's like a home invasion.
It's just, it's like I've always said, it's children are what we protect, as a species, we have to protect our own, not just our own biologically, but in order for the species to survive, we want to look after our young. But it is something that we do as humans. We're kind of a messed up race. It happens in the animal kingdom. There's animals that take out the animals, the young of other clans, rival clans. It happens like with wild dogs and wolves and things like that. And this guy is one of the nasty ones, and he's doing it purely to get his end away, and that's it, And the thing is as well, there's no happy ending for him in this situation. What does he think it's going to accomplish? But I don't suppose he's thinking that far ahead. It's like a drug, isn't it? Getting that quick fix.
Yeah, he's thinking that he's going to have sex.
And that's
at least getting her to talk about it. And that's going to be enough for him if that's all that he can get. But obviously, the end result was him showing up at the house to do it right there. That's what he was going for.
Yeah. So, okay, it does hurt a girl the first time. That's kind of scary. And then here we have, where it starts. Probably the worst part for me in the chat is where he gets her to do this, and he's quite insistent about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that hurt a girl thing. That seems to be pretty common with these guys. It's his way of being honest when it happens, I guess. I mean, in retrospect. But
I don't know. I mean, first, I don't think that he knows that for sure. That's definitely something that he's heard before. Right. Yeah. And, the other thing, too, I kind of see it almost like a power play. I think for him to hurt someone with his penis is something that he would like.
Totally
you're
agree with that.
too big. You're so big. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right. He said, you think you put the whole thing in your mouth? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We haven't got that yet. Spoiler alert.
Right. Right. But yeah, I think that is something that he would really like. I don't know if that's a guy thing. Do guys like that?
What?
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Like,
we take such pride in having our penises known as destroyers.
Right. Exactly.
I was gonna recount a story from my younger days, but I don't want to.
Destroy you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think people want to hear that nonsense. But I think
a 13-year-old girl certainly doesn't want to hear that either. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Definitely.
But I mean, yeah. Oh, I can't really answer that. Okay. How should I reword that? Lol. How should I say this? How should I say this? Have you ever? There's no subtle way of saying it past Lorne.
It took him almost a minute to get through that whole muddled request. I mean, from 11:21:50 all the way to 55, more than a minute. He must have wondering, have I freaked her out yet?
Oh, yeah.
Could you imagine if he
my math right here?
If he was talking to her on the phone, the mini syllables that would be happening.
Yeah.
All the squeaks and the mini syllables, they'd be crazy.
He's probably just pounding on his keyboard, not even looking at his monitor when she responds.
With one hand.
In a frenzy. Yeah.
Right.
Oh boy, here we go. Experimenting time. All right. Get your Bunsen burners out. Let's go. Okay, so he wants to experiment. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult to get through this. Have you ever touched yourself down there? So there's two reasons why Lorne would get onto this, right? And the main one is him getting gratification. It's as simple as that. But is there also a part of him, or is it purely motivated for getting her ready for him? Basically, is it part of her training? I know that sounds pretty gross. Of course it is, but do you understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he wants to know if she's ever done it before, so that maybe they could do it together.
See, I was thinking at this point he just wanted to hear or see her talk about touching herself.
Yeah.
Like that was just the only goal. I don't know if he actually had plans to hook up with her at this point in real life. I think it would be good enough for him at this moment just to read those words on his computer screen.
So you don't think that there's been a big part of him during this 2 hours, just more than 2 hours, that's part of his tactics are for a liaison. It's like that's part of what he's doing there. It's like all this stuff about, instilling her with trust. It's not just
I'm sure he would if he had the opportunity, but I think at this point he didn't know whether he would have that opportunity or not. What I mean is I think even if they never met, even if he never planned to meet, which he probably did, then it would have been enough for him just to have this dirty talk online with a little girl at this moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, definitely. And also to have his cam on. And, imagine that most of the time he's not actually meeting any of these girls. It's not going to get to that point. But he is in a local chat room. So he's in Nashville, but she's in Kentucky. Obviously, he only had to drive an hour. So he didn't know exactly where she was in the state at that point. But, I think there was always the possibility that she could have been really close and that he could meet up with her. Just like he did with his other victim, too. That was local.
That was actually further away than Kayla.
Yeah, it was further away. But certainly when it comes to doing the chatting, he wouldn't care if she was in California. Like if she was that age and was willing to speak with him, he would definitely be all in. So you're right in the sense that he just wanted to have this conversation, wanted to talk about masturbating, and hopefully they could do it together. I think that's what he was going for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just from a logistics standpoint, I read before in this chat log that that situation where his neighbor came in and Kayla was afraid that she saw his pic or her pics, and he said he's covering them both up. One with the chat dialogue box, which covered one of her pictures, and the other is of his webcam of him. So I don't know much about webcams, I guess, but I guess you're going to get the image. He's looking at images of himself while he's talking to her as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's doing. I mean, if he's covering up these, of course, maybe the pictures over there too, but I thought that was really strange. Everything he's doing, he's probably enjoying watching himself.
Yeah, he wants to make sure he looks good.
Yeah.
Which he never has, of course. So she's playing here. Have you ever touched yourself down there? And then Kayla says, touch myself. Girls touch themselves down there because it feels good to them. Really? They rub it. Yup. Are you trying it now? So he's kind of like, he's quite, and then she responds, no. Okay, but you're curious.
Well, she didn't just say no.
No, she said no. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
quite
like
insistent
no,
no, isn't it?
No. Yeah.
But he won't let it drop. Okay, but you're curious about how it feels having sex, right? And have you noticed he doesn't just say, he's not just asking her a question. He's kind of telling her what she's doing. He's telling her what she's thinking. It's like, but you're curious. Not are you? You know what I mean? It's quite aggressive speaking. He can't be too aggressive because obviously, but he's leading her, isn't he? You know what I mean? It's all a tactic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Okay,
and
the only way.
Aerodo said something good too. That this tactic is also making him feel like he's a good guy, which is important.
No, because I don't think he's thinking of himself as a good guy talking about sex. I think I think he's looking at himself as someone who's trusted enough by her to talk about sex.
I don't know. I think he's got that big thing about emotions and love making it all okay. Remember, kids have feelings; they could fall in love too.
Right, but that hasn't happened yet. They haven't even talked about any love or relationship. He's just
We're talking about
teaching
what's
her
going on
right
in his
now.
head. I thought we were speculating what was going on in his head, obviously.
Well, yeah, but he's not thinking I love her. That's not even close. I mean, he would love it so much, and which ended up happening was for her to reciprocate and to tell him that she loved him at some point, but they're not even there.
Yeah, we
Like,
can
he
talk
doesn't know
about that nearer the time, but of course I agree with you, Shin. We want to know what's going on in his head. That's the point of doing this, really, to try, because this is raw, and forgive the pun, but this is exactly what was going on in his head. You've obviously got a certain degree of manipulation that's going on here, so it's not exact. He's not typing exactly what he's thinking. It's all tactics. It's all manipulation. But it's a window into his soul, basically, if he has one, which he does, of course. But anyway, let's not get into that. So it's interesting to speculate. I don't think at this point that real feelings, this love thing, is even entering his brain. We can get into it later on, whether we think that there's a part of him that thought. I've got my own theories. We'll go into that later. Are you ready for this? Isn't this like what he says on the phone? Are you ready for
Are
it?
you ready for me? Well, I think, just to add another note, I think he's not really sure how long she's going to stick around. So
Yeah,
he
of
kind of
course,
has
yes.
to eventually get to the
that,
point.
Do you think that that's an ongoing theme with what he's doing, that there's an underlying fear throughout the whole chat that she could disappear? Do you think that's the reason why he's quite insistent? He's not as insistent as some of the other predators. We've got to remember that he's playing the long game with Kayla. We're 2 hours in, and it might not seem like a lot, but don't forget the fast movers, as perverted justice say. They're straight on the Warwicker and all the others are like, right, I want to have sex. Do you like rape? It's comical, but it's true, isn't it? Lorne's played the protector, and it's been speculated by a lot of people, and we don't necessarily have to touch up on this too much. We have mentioned it before. It's a more evil, sinister approach. Is the hiding and masquerading as the good guy when really you're far from it. Are you ready for me? Take your finger and push it in your... I don't even like saying those words. It just seems wrong to say it in that context, but of course, there wasn't a real girl, so I suppose we can. So he's saying, take your finger and push it in your vagina, so he's being very... he's getting straight to the point, isn't it? I had a hard time telling you that, lol. Now, I would say that is just a tactic of him, in case she is getting switched on to how horrible it actually is what he's doing. So it's a kind of get out clause for him. Do you agree?
Yeah, because he has 3 lulls in a row.
Yeah.
Lull, lull, lull. Yeah.
He's nervous.
Yeah. And do you think, Shin, you're probably, no disrespect to my other 2 guests, but as your legal background, do you think that at this point Lorne is considering any legal aspect to what he's doing?
Well, there's statutes about soliciting minors and things like that. I guess when you get to take your finger and push it in your vagina, contribute to delinquency of a minor, maybe. Nothing nearly as serious as what he got nailed for.
But what I mean is, do you think it's a factor in his brain? Obviously, we don't know, but from what you know of the chat and him, do you think that part of his nervousness at this point is because he knows that he's on really fucking shaky ground? I mean, it's bad enough.
Legally, I don't think he gives a shit. I think he would be nervous about being on shaky ground about losing her. That's it. That's my view.
Yeah, I don't think he's even aware that there could be a crime committed talking on the computer.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good point, actually, because there's a lot of predators that fall afoul to that, isn't there? They did, it's like, well, there's, I haven't done anything. Those kind of people, they don't really understand that there's just it's a crime just to talk to them in a sexual manner. Do we know when that piece of legislation was brought in?
Which the one he got prosecuted under?
Well, no, the enticing a minor over the internet. It's a recent part of legislation in the UK. So, like enticing a minor on the internet with the intent
each state has their own laws on that. In terms of federal law, I don't know, but I would assume it was somewhere in the mid 2000s sometime when this became a problem.
So it's quite a recent thing, which is probably why a lot of the predators, fall into the trap, shall we say, and get prosecuted just for the chat. And then Kayla here registers what a lot of girls that age would say and go, ugh. And then he responds, lol, girls do it all the time, trying to legitimize it to make her think it's normal and that she should not feel bad about doing it. And, and then the decoy, we got to remember what the decoy's tactics are. It's always important to remember that. And then she comes back with, really, you're sure?
11 seconds later, too. He must have been freaking out.
Sorry?
11 seconds later, she comes back with the really. He must have been worried whether he lost her at that point. I mean, that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's why he threw in the lull, and then girls do it all the time. Lull.
Yeah, it's kind of a turning point for him,
Right. Just like when he was really desperate at the beginning, he was pretty rapid fire with his questions and responses just to get something from her. He wanted to keep her there.
Yeah, and then he's off to the races when she starts to answer now. Right. Now he's in.
Yeah. But she comes back with slightly... she's got to play the part of somebody who wants to play the game, because otherwise it's not going to keep him interested, is it? You've got to
Right.
The decoy.
Why she's there?
Sorry?
That's why she's there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she can't play the timid. Oh, what you doing? This is weird. She's got to show some kind of interest and keep him dangling. So at this point, she's coming back with quite short, very nothing for him to. I mean, as far as decoys go, if you compare Kayla to the decoys that Tetra Core have used, and when I go over the chat logs of the Hanson versus Predator guys, it's such a totally different level of communicating, but it has to be because so much has happened since then. They've really got to work very hard to draw these guys in and use very sophisticated ways of making them think that there's no danger. With this kind of scenario, they didn't really need to do a lot. So it's just simply, really, you're sure? Yup, I'm positive. I don't think my friends have. Well, believe me, if they don't yet, they will. Even if they do, they probably won't say that they do anyway. That's interesting. Is that making her believe that even if she doesn't know anything about it, then she should be doing it?
Yeah, it's like giving up all innocence thoughts about your friends. Here we go.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the real world.
Yeah, I think he's saying all kids your age do it, so you should do it too. They just don't tell you about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of quite. Does Lorne deserve any credit from a criminal's perspective there, in that it's quite clever manipulation tactics?
Yeah, I think this is all very manipulative. Like, to go back a little bit, when he said the only way for you to really have an idea of what it's like without having sex with a boy is for you to do this, he didn't come out and say, I want you to touch yourself and tell me about it because I get perverse gratification from it. He's acting like he's trying to educate her. Like, oh, I can help you understand what it's like to have sex. Do this to yourself. Don't forget to tell me about it, though. He's not coming right out and saying, I want to hear about it because, I get turned on by it.
And your friends are doing it too, even if they're not telling you. So it's okay for you to do it.
Right. Another example of him giving her permission to do something that he has no right to give her permission to do.
Do you think there's some strategy involving him having her do something compromising first before he does? In other words, get her hooked into it, like instead of exposing himself right away and explaining what his penis was and all that other stuff, he gets her already committed by doing something to herself first, and then it in a way, it kind of, makes it easier for him. Number one, and number two, he also has her locked in.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm sure he was afraid of coming on a little too strong with immediately
Demeanor.
pointing the cam at his dick,
Yeah.
Right. So I'm thinking that's part of his strategy here, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, how some predators do this with young girls, and they extort them to keep producing more pornography by getting them to do something small and then having that over their head, committing them to that. And then from there on out, just blackmailing them for as long as they can. I'm not saying that's obviously not his end game, but he does want them to commit to doing something a little untoward first. And that'll give him more permission. And also, she doesn't have clean hands anymore. I mean, again, no pun intended. But I'm thinking that's the strategy is, rather than just show his dick.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
No, it's interesting. Are you curious now? Yeah. Are you going to try it? Lol. There's always a lol, isn't there? I don't know. Lol. Like, no. Oh, right. Yeah. I thought he said that. Yup. Try it right now. Just put it in a little ways and you can see how it feels. Well, okay. Lol. I feel weird. Don't put it in fast, though. Do it slow. I mean, this is like, I remember when I saw this for the first time, the initial part of the chat is kind of funny and interesting, and then when he gets to this point, it gets quite disturbing, really, because, he's affecting her, like, physically at this point, and it's not, like, can you imagine if there was a real girl really doing this, and he was getting her to do these kind of things to her body, and this will be something that she'd remember forever. Especially, and this kind of thing would work on vulnerable girls. I don't think that girls that had something about them, I don't mean that in a negative way to people who were in this position, but let's say girls that, maybe had a more secure family or more self-confidence, they wouldn't even be engaging in this kind of chat. But girls like victim number one, girls like theoretically, not the character of Kayla wouldn't have been in, like a daughter of two doctors. I don't think, you would generally.
Can I ask the women something here? He's treating now. Kayla's 13 here, right? Would it be unusual? I mean, I'm assuming that girls would know about masturbating at that age. I mean, is this something that is? Am I off the wall? I mean, they must have heard it, talked to their friends or something. He can't be expecting that she's hearing about this for the first time. I mean, that's striking anybody else as kind of weird?
I think that's about. Yeah, I think that's about the age that most girls learn about this. Maybe Kayla was a little bit of a late bloomer, though.
So he's treating her like it feels like he's instructing her like she's a few years younger than she actually is.
Well, he doesn't know when a girl is going to, and like he had mentioned before, kids your age have done a lot more as well. So
yeah,
she could fall anywhere in the spectrum. I mean, just like, he's almost a 50-year-old virgin. No one would assume that, right?
Right. Do you think he's a virgin, really, Tiffany?
Oh, here we go.
I have to know Tiffany's opinion.
I think that we're never going to know 100%, so I don't know 100% if that's true or not. I think that there's definitely arguments on both sides of it.
You should be a politician, Tiffany.
I know, exactly. Vote for me. But I think there's definitely arguments on both sides. There was evidence that I hadn't even considered when thinking about it. I had originally thought, without getting too crazy into this, we're going to get totally off track again. But I think, before we would figure, okay, He used to drink a lot. He was going to bars. We know how bars work. There's going to be someone who he can have a one night stand with. So, but at the same time, thinking about how awkward he is socially, I don't think he was the type of guy who was very outgoing. I think he just kind of, even if he was going out with a group when he was in the Air Force, that he would have been in the back. He wouldn't have been talking unless somebody spoke to him. So I think there's a lot there. And then plus, when you hear his sex talk, it's very odd. It almost seems like he doesn't really know.
Oh,
a lot
baby.
of the things,
Oh,
right? A lot of the things that he will say are things that he probably would have heard before. Just like it hurts girls the first time. And when you think about it too, a lot of the stories that he tells just aren't true. There's no way that he was having sex with a woman who happened to be on her period and he put a trash bag underneath her. It's just that's not the way that it goes. Or he was talking about having oral sex and he said, well, I can avoid all that even if you're on your period. So it's ridiculous. Yeah. So a lot of the
hickeys on vaginas.
Yeah, exactly. He thinks, or he fantasizes about falling asleep with his dick inside of you
all night long.
That's not even possible. All night long, yeah. So there's a lot of evidence there that he doesn't really know how sex works. But I can also see that there's a possibility that he just kind of had this drunken mess happening that he happened to.
That pretty much describes my entire sex life, to be honest.
Great.
Sounds good to me.
That's what I think happened. I think it's likely that he has had one or maybe two, if I'm being very generous, very brief, very drunk sexual experiences where he, like when we hear him do sexy talk, he repeats over and over how he wants to stick it in. And I think that's the only thing he's ever done. So it's not surprising that he doesn't know about anything else because he's never done it. But the most compelling evidence that I have for Team Virgin would be that if he actually had sex with a real woman, he would remember every detail of it, even if he was very drunk. He would. That's true. I didn't really consider that until right now. And he would know her name. He would stalk her. He would love her forever.
Very good point.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be obsessed with a woman he was never even in a relationship with.
Right. He talks about that as if it's something dirty.
Exactly. Amanda, that's a great point.
It's a really good point, that. Brilliant.
I was very convinced that he's not a virgin up until this moment, and now I have to rethink everything.
You hear about it.
That's amazing. But this is an historic moment. But the thing is, as well, my standpoint was what Tiffany already pointed to, was that it's so easy to have some kind of drunken fumble. But then again, this is Lorne, isn't it? If you look at his communication abilities with women, it's virtually like what mine would be after 20 beers. And even I've got laid after 20 beers. So it's like he doesn't... It's like... When Lorne was at the chatlog here, how would you rate him as far as looks go? He wasn't like totally grotesque, would you? Would you just give him like below average?
Definitely below average. I think better than he is now, for sure. I mean, he's several years younger at that point.
But not so unattractive that a woman wearing beer goggles wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot
pole.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem is he's riddled with insecurities. He's riddled with them. I mean, obviously the alcohol helps him deal with some of that, and he's a little bit, but that's when he becomes even more obnoxious. So I'm not exactly sure what choice he would have in those situations. And even if he did manage to get a woman to get in a car with him, I don't know if he can close the deal. I mean, I think he would be riddled with insecurities in the bedroom too.
Like physically unable to seal the deal? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, whether it's physical or emotional, I don't know what it is, but this, I don't know. He's just so full of insecurities. I can't imagine anyone would allow themselves to just give themselves up to him. You know,
Oh, there are women who would give
Yeah,
themselves up to him.
we
we
can.
would
There
hear
are.
about them,
That's
though, right, Amanda? We would
right.
hear.
Women
That,
are
and that's
dirty.
there are women who just have very low standards, or who have very low self-esteem, or they just get really drunk and make very bad choices. So
Mhm.
I don't think it's unreasonable to think that Lauren could have found a very, very drunk woman one night. But like you guys said, would he have what it takes to seal the deal?
We
Because
would.
I
I
don't think he
still believe that.
would ever care about, I don't think it would even occur to him that a woman was too drunk to consent ever. He didn't
No.
care that,
No.
People were too
No.
young to consent. He
Yeah.
wouldn't care about.
Certainly not.
So
It's interesting because what you were saying, Amanda, about him boasting about it, and that was a fantastic point, because of course he would if it was something that he had a full recollection of. Now we're never going to know for sure, but there is also the possibility that he had some kind of a drunken fumble that he doesn't have full memory of. He's not sure who it was. Let's be honest, right? I think we've got it. I think it's something we can all say for sure. If he's done it in the past, it will have been a drunken fumble.
yeah,
So
100%. Yeah.
So
I think he'd be more handicapped in that situation.
he wouldn't have had maybe a recollection of who it was. And let's be honest, right? Like you've said, there are some women that are as desperate as some men. It's just the way it goes. And some women that have got as low standards as what some men have. So the girl or the person that we can pity, that poor girl, that did get it on with drunk Lorne, who was drunk herself, she wouldn't have he wouldn't have got anything out of her as far as like details went, or he probably didn't want to remember himself. But I don't know, it's a strange thing, because it really is inherent to Lorne's insecurities and how he felt about himself at that time and his experience with women. How much confidence did he have? Because when you have a beer and you're a guy, it gives you a little bit of confidence. But the problem is when you're drinking and you're trying to pull a woman, it can give you a little bit too much confidence sometimes, and you come out with some shit.
To agree to it, right? But I don't know. To play to Amanda's point a little bit, he throws away people too that he said he had sex with, which is so against his nature. It was a one night stand. I didn't want to be with her. She wanted to be with me. Why aren't we knowing about this? First of all, he doesn't throw women away. He doesn't. He clings on to them like glue. It doesn't matter. So, just to take Amanda's point further, I mean, not only would we hear about the people he would have, but he certainly wouldn't disregard them and throw them away. And treat them like, they were just, one night stand whores or whatever he wants to call them or imply that they are. He doesn't think like that in real life when someone comes along and gives him attention.
Well, if you think about Paula, now that would have been the one I would have said that he had sex with. She probably, if I wanted to go on the side of not being a virgin, it would have been with her. And that would have been probably the only time, because he was obsessed with Paula.
Still is, right? I mean,
I would imagine so. I mean, he brought her up all the way into Ramona. You hurt me more than Paula. And
did he say that he had sex with Paula?
He did. And he also said it was a one night stand, but this was someone that he spent time with. So the whole Paula story is really weird, because this was someone who was a friend, and I think that they did spend time together. I think that he was following her around like a puppy. She was involved with someone she was going to be engaged with. Hang on.
Yeah, and there was one point they were like geographically, right? I mean, she was in somewhere in Alaska or something. He was in Maine. And he still was carrying a torch for her?
Oh, he was carrying a torch for her 20 plus years later.
Yeah.
I mean, she was the one. And when he speaks about her, he will say the bitch was a slut or a slut. Like, I mean, just because she was in a relationship, they broke up. he said that he was giving her space in order to make his move. And he never had the opportunity because then she got back together with this guy. But I think that in the meantime, or when she was with this other guy and they had a fight, she went and saw Lorne and they ended up having sex one night. But then after that, she ended up going back with this other guy and he never sealed the deal as far as a relationship was concerned. But that would have been the only person that I would say he had sex with because he was obsessed, completely obsessed.
What about in the Air Force? Sorry, never mind.
No, it's okay. If somebody wants to answer that, I don't know. Again, I think it is possible that he did have a drunken one night stand in the Air Force, and maybe the woman disappeared. Well, maybe he doesn't know her name. Maybe she disappeared even before he woke up. Maybe she woke up and didn't like what she was seeing, and she took off and ran away. You can't blame her.
I would probably have to say there was no waking up. You know what I mean? As far as, like, they probably just had sex and he had to leave.
How could she get out of there with his penis in her all night? That's the whole
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. I have one more very brief question about this for you guys. Do you think, and I could be way off, but do you think that he would ever admit if he was a virgin? Like in one of his,
say never,
even in a drunken, even in the pits of a drunken blackout?
No.
I don't think so, ever. It's too, he hasn't got, it's not inherent to his character because in order to, if you're, in my opinion, if you're a guy in that situation, it would be a lot to admit and it would take a lot of courage to do it and he doesn't have any.
Right. Maybe I'm just thinking about it from a woman's perspective. I just thought maybe because he romanticizes everything so much, including sex and virginity especially, I thought maybe it would be possible for him to let it slip when he was very, very drunk.
I think
but maybe you guys are right.
That is an interesting thing to ponder, though, because I've not listened to all of there's so much like content out there with regard to him, speaking to various people. I've not heard all of it, but I can only assume that there's hours of drunken footage of him being really drunk. So everything that's in his mind at some point has come to the surface. So I know what you're saying. It's like, would there ever be a point where he'd get that drunk and insecure that he'd admit it? But you know what it could be? He could have convinced himself that he isn't one. Because Lorne does bullshit himself.
My penis touched the outside of a labia. That was good enough. I'm not a virgin anymore.
Yeah. Or even just blatantly, because humans have I've mentioned this in videos before, we have an amazing ability for self-deception. And what happens if you tell yourself a lie to other people? So if you tell other people a lie so often, it starts to become the truth in your own mind. That could be it. So it may not even be... The thing that I always used to lean... Yeah, the thing I always used to lean towards when this virgin debate came up was how much of a kind of burden it would be if he was still a virgin. Like how I just think that if you were that age and you was a registered sex offender and happened to be a virgin, it'd be too much for any human being to bear, and you just put
that's a wrap.
Fucking building.
Well, you would also think that he would look for real women in his area that he would have a chance of actually... I mean, I know he thought that he was working towards meeting with all of his phone girlfriends. But if he was so desperate to really meet up with a woman, especially if he was a virgin, you would think he would be out hunting for women at the yard sale in Walmart rather than... spending all his time on the phone with someone who he doesn't even know their last name, and they keep making excuses not to come and see him.
But he doesn't have the confidence to do that, does he? You know what I mean?
I guess, yeah.
You have to have some positive aspects. He has a very deep down. Lorne has a terribly low opinion of himself. Really deep down. I know it doesn't appear so on the surface, but it's all a front. I've heard some of the call, I've heard the Tiffany stuff. Some of the other stuff I've not heard so much. But some of the things that people have got him to do sicken me. to the point where a human being would subject that to himself. And the reason that it is because he feels worthless. He feels he has a total lack of respect for himself. There's zero respect. We can speculate why, and we will do in future videos, because I find it very, very interesting. You know what I'm like? I don't believe monsters are made. I believe they are created, and I don't mean that resolves any responsibility. So, you know what that's what all this is about. He feels like he's just completely worthless. So he's this bravado, and I'm Lorne Armstrong and all that. It's a complete front to cover it up, because no one would subject himself to that. Ramona situation really highlighted it to me. That surprised me the most, when he was still talking to her after he'd found out that she'd been putting him on the internet for a year. That what kind of person would go back to that? It's like the beaten down domestic violence victim who continually goes back. Why do they go back? Because they've got terribly low self-esteem and they don't think they can do any better. Lorne's no different. You know, well, he is different. There's a lot different, but that same feeling. And the problem with him is because he projects that, rather than dealing with it internally and facing that terrible feeling of worthlessness and dealing with it, he seeks out victims to cover it up, which is the difference between a good and bad person. You know, a good person faces up to it and faces the pain, and a bad person is too afraid and they seek out prey, which is what Lorne does. Lorne doesn't seek out prey anymore because he can't legally. Well, I mean, he never could, but, you know, he's got too much to... I mean, it leads us on to something else. I mean, I've not finished talking about the virgin thing, but do we think, let's just say... I think we know the answer to this question. Let's just say that Lorne was able to get himself in another chat log like this. Would he do it if he thought there was no legal repercussions?
With a kid?
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. I mean, if he was very positive in his mind that there was no way he would get caught, yeah, I think he would do it. Wasn't Rhoda just shy of 18, or was she 18?
She was 18, and I think that's what would make it different. I think getting online and speaking to someone who is younger, I think he would be very hesitant to do that. I'm not sure that he would. Not because he would have any kind of a moral conviction against it, but I think because he would be too afraid that it's another perverted justice. He has thought all of this time that Xavier is still after him. So I think that can definitely be another Xavier character working on him. I think when it comes to Rhoda was someone that he had a real connection with, as far as he was, quote unquote, dating her mother. So this was a real person who could be verified on the other end.
Right. But what if Rhoda was 13? And he was positive that it was his girlfriend's daughter. It wasn't perverted justice. No one was setting him up. No one would ever tell on him. Would he have gone the same way with Rhoda, do you think?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. I think so too. That's what I mean. And that...
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I was just going to say, I think that's the only way. I don't think he would ever get online and talk to a stranger again. You know, a child. But if he was quite sure that he wouldn't get caught and get in trouble, then I think he would definitely do it.
Yeah, he would.
It turns him on to have that dynamic, that power dynamic. That's part of it with him. And his insecurities are less when he has a child. You know, those raging insecurities are now, he's in command. You know, he's teaching somebody. He's proud to be teaching somebody. So that's kind of a different attraction altogether than just any other normal person. So when you ask about a kid, yeah, I think he would jump on it if it was a consequence-free environment. And
I think most people can agree.
And if I was living with him, with, you know, her mother or something, I think things would be happening. But again, it's a different impulse that he has for the children than he would for adults, even though it's the same abuse level. But for children, he can't have that same power dynamic with an adult woman, you know, like he can with a child. And his insecurities would be less prevalent in that situation.
And there's so many reasons why people like Lorne, and it's something that obviously I do repeat myself a lot, but the certain points that I think are always worth reiterating is that there are millions of people like Lorne in the world that are exactly the same as him, that have got no morals, that will go after anybody if it means sexual gratification. It's just people that are kind of a lower level of consciousness, really. Lower vibrational frequency, if you want to get new agey about it. People that just don't seem to have, because I believe that this moral thing is kind of an evolution that we're going towards. There's a lot of disagreements in philosophical circles about morals and they're a human construct, but there's also some scientific evidence that it's actually ingrained in our DNA and that it's part of who we are as humans to be kind, and that it's part of doing selfless acts.
Empathy, yeah.
It's part of where we're destined as a species. People like Lorne just don't have that ability. Not ability. Well, yeah. I mean, is he capable of a selfless act?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Everybody
when is he done one? When
Well, it's because he doesn't want to, not because he's not capable.
But it's the same. I suppose it's kind of like he's capable, as in he's got free will. But I know some people that would never do a selfless act, ever. Not friends of mine, just people that I know. They're just not. It's not who they are as people at that moment in time, because people like Lorne, everything about them is about themselves. Everything. Every single thing. It's like you say, you've said it, Tiffany, is that you judge a person by what they do when they think that nobody is watching. Because that is a fantastic indicator of how they feel about themselves and how they, do they have integrity. Lorne has zero.
If he were to do a selfless act, he would make sure that everybody was watching.
Clobber's just
and then it wouldn't
bought
be
his mum a refrigerator. Is that true?
Yeah, remember when she was at court? Yeah, she was talking about the freezer that he paid for and said she won a contest, but
he didn't want me to know.
But he didn't. But he told everyone else.
Right. Even if he didn't tell mom, he told all his siblings. I'm sure he bragged about it for years.
Can you imagine him walking into his mother's house after she finds out, and with the cock of the walk walking in there? I don't talk about these things, Mom. I just do these things. That's all I do.
Right.
Yeah, everything has some public relations aspect to it.
Exactly. There's no selfless act, is there? There's just it's sometimes selfless acts can't be like planned or something. It's just something that feels right at the time. Like you give, you help a stranger out. Sometimes you put your own life at risk. It happens again and again, and
well, if take a look at it, he's got examples of selfless acts that he allegedly did, helping his siblings out, $700 of work here, $700 of work there. There's nothing selfless about any of that.
No, he did it all. Yeah, he just wants admiration. He wants people to idolize him like he idolizes others. He wants people to see him as a hero.
By their love, like his mother said.
Yeah, I agree. That's what it's all about.
But think about what he says to his brothers and his sister when he does this work. Oh, if you want to, you can get me a Christmas, for a Christmas present. You can make me mac and cheese. Yeah. He's basically saying, oh, that's $700. That's no big deal. Like, don't worry about it. I have it. I am more financially secure than you are, so just make me some food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course they didn't.
I wonder how clear that was to them, though.
What was that?
I wonder how clear, it was much more clear to him that he was getting food in return than it was to them, I think.
Well, I mean, the thing is that if you're offering something like that, if you're saying, if you want to get me a Christmas present, I mean, essentially, one of the things he said first was, this is a Christmas present. Don't worry about it. If you want to get me something, this is what you can do. Don't worry about getting me something expensive. Don't worry about paying me back. You can just make me this food. And I think that it was clear. He was basically saying, this is, I'm doing this for you because I'm your brother for Christmas. However, they would have to know Lorne to some degree to know that it really wasn't a Christmas gift. I mean, if you were going to do something for someone, that is going to be pretty expensive. If somebody was asking you to pay for their car repair, I think even if it was a family member or something, I don't think it's out of question to ask for a reimbursement. Maybe not immediately, but it has to be upfront. What is the expectation? And he was setting that out.
In his mind, it was a condition. It wasn't
in his mind, and that's the thing. Everything is always in his mind.
Yeah.
Everyone has this obligation to him in his mind. Jenny from Walmart was interested. In his mind, Paula was his girlfriend. So,
like in our mind, in a normal person's minds, if we did something like that, 700 our crew and whatever I did, and I said something like, "Hey, make me some meatballs sometime when you get a chance," whatever. It would be out of my head at that point. I wouldn't keep remembering that.
Yeah.
Most people would just say something like that to be nice, to like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I know you can't afford to give me something expensive or to pay me back. So if it makes you feel better, then," like, I say that to my kids when they're like, "Oh, it's Mother's Day and I can't get you a gift." And I'm like, "Oh, well, if you want to get me a gift, you can make mommy a macaroni necklace."
There you go. You're locked into a contract now. You better do that.
Well, it's like,
that's what he does. He locks you into a contract. He locks you into a promise. He locks you into everything.
So, in other words, everything he does is all motivated by self-interest. And to be honest, if you look at the actions, and this might be a cynical way of looking at humans, is that very, very rarely do people do acts that are completely selfless. There's usually some kind of self-interest in it. You know what I mean? The people do it. It's like all the people in this community with all the, the Betty donations and things like that. But Lorne is an extreme example, of the selfishness, and it's gratifying, really, because it shows that you can't get away with it in life, can you? You know what I mean? Even people that you would judge as being bad probably are very kind to the family and look after their own. You know what I mean? Whereas he doesn't even do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no no altruism anymore, buddy. Where are we anyway? Have we got to him naked yet? Anyway.
Well, yeah, we'll do a few more minutes and then I have to bail. It's getting a little bit late. We've had a 30-minute kind of hiatus there with regard to the chat, haven't we? Talking about the virgin thing and how much of a selfish human he is, etc., etc. No, it's cool.
It's my fault.
Nothing to apologise for.
It happens every single time.
I mentioned to Clobber in the stream then that maybe we should it has been speculated about for a long time, some kind of virgin debate on online, whether whose channel it is, it doesn't really matter, but be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it would be fun.
Yeah, I'm very interested in it, and I'm especially interested in Tiffany's opinion. I think she holds kind of a unique position to because she's talked to him, and
she
and she secretly fancies him as well, I reckon.
She's felt that. She's been embraced by that warm closeness.
Yeah. Oh, God. Exactly. You guys were in the same room with him. So you've been closer to him than me.
Yeah. We can't talk, can we?
They wouldn't let me hug him.
In fact, I travelled fucking halfway across the world to see him, so I've got no room to talk. And do you know what the funny thing is? I don't regret anything about
that. You're coming next time, Tiffany. And Amanda, no excuses.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, you were gonna. You didn't live too far away, did you?
No, I don't. I'm really close. I regret not going.
I think we'll all get another opportunity. Oh, can you imagine if we all turned up there? Oh, his mind
Oh
would be
my God,
fucking
that'd be
blown,
amazing.
wouldn't it? We'd have to have signs. We'd have to hold signs up.
Andy, you and I would have to bow out to go into the court because we did last time. There'd be so many people who want to go in there.
Yeah.
When there's only limited seating. I mean, it wouldn't be fair. Somebody else has got to experience this. We'll have a triage tent outside after.
Man. So fucking be so good. Right, okay, so is still just before we leave, we'll get through a little bit more of this. So here we go. Tell me when you're done. I'm done, and it's only fucking hell 7 seconds later. How did it feel? Kind of cool. This is kind of interesting, isn't it? Oh my god! Whoa. There's no. It doesn't take a genius to work out what's going on there, does it?
Not far. I was scared. Jeez.
Oh, he tells her now, do it again.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is pretty disturbing, isn't it? Okay,
Yeah,
now do it
he's
again
horrible.
and put it further in. Kay, tell me when you're done. Kay.
Like, that's not even erotic for the girl. I mean, just do it. You know, it's like he's telling you to do something clinical. You know, just do that. Okay, but there's no. I don't know. I mean, I know we're talking about a 13-year-old, but
he doesn't care if she likes it. He wants her to do it anyway.
Yeah,
do it.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel weird doing this. Feel weird is not. It's not particularly positive, is it? And then he comes back with a lol, and then not to less than 20 seconds later, you're all right. It's just you doing it to you, lol.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I really hate that. I really hate that he said that.
You're all right. I'm telling you that you're all right. It's okay.
Yeah. It's another example of him giving her permission or acting like he's an authority figure, and he can tell her, oh, it's all right. You can do it. You're just doing it to yourself.
Yeah.
He even tells you what a woman's going to feel. You know, he's got that much experience. It's going to hurt a little bit, but you'll like it.
Right.
Oh, now don't judge him too harshly, guys, because here he says, do you want to do it anymore? Not really. Okay, then don't do it, Rose. Now, of course, doesn't there isn't a good. It's just Lorne knows there are boundaries here. He knows that he can't say, listen, I don't want any shit from you. Pick up that fucking banana. You know, there's no, it's all motivated by, he's clever enough to know that he can't push you too far, basically.
Adam's really good at this point. When you guys did that chatlog thing, Adam was funny as hell during this.
What chatlog thing?
When you went through this part in the chatlog before, you and Adam were actually, he got all upset about the rape thing, and it was just hilarious.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was outraged. In fact, we kind of like it was the first time we really talked about it in detail when he mentioned rape, and because what we were speculating on was did he utter those words because rape was on his mind? I personally don't think it was, but obviously there's I can understand why people would say. I mean, we talked about that when we did the video last time, and this is the same thing. It's well, not the same thing, but he knows where the boundaries are. He knows he can't push you too far. That's all that this is about. I don't want to patronise anybody in the chat, but of course, when she's saying I don't like it, not really, because Kayla's, the decoy's playing.
First rose. I think that's our first rose, isn't it?
I think it might be.
I'm not sure if it's the first one.
No, I think there was one at the beginning.
Okay.
But
there wasn't. I think there wasn't many.
I thought he was rewarding her for this, for going through with it. Okay.
But you know what's odd is when she says, "Do I got to do this?" and he says, "Not if you don't want to, sweetheart." So he's laying that on. And then he asks her, "Do you want to do it anymore?" Why would you have to ask her that?
Right, obviously not. Yeah.
My turn. That's what he's
Yeah,
thinking.
exactly.
Yeah, that is true. You scroll down, it's coming to his turn.
And it's funny how he wants to be acknowledged and thanked for this. You feel better
Yeah.
now? A little bit more about it? You know, it's like, hey, glad to help, kid.
Right.
Yeah, he's the good guy, just trying to teach her.
And here he comes to his strangeness, really strange.
Have you ever
Yeah,
seen...
this is the penis reveal, I think.
Okay, should we okay. Have you not really not in real life? Okay. Where have you seen one? Pics. Oh, lol. So you've been trying to see one then, lol.
What? Where do you get that? Where do you get that? You've been like she's been taking great efforts and trying to look for a picture of a penis somewhere.
I think he's constantly trying to tell her what she's thinking and how she's behaving. It's like leading. He's really leading her, isn't he? He's trying to lead her down a path and not give her an option. You know, he wants her to do certain things. He just wants total control over her, doesn't he? You know, and that's
he
a
does
common
it again.
theme.
He does it again, just 2 lines down.
Yeah. In other words,
Yeah. In other words, you wanted to see one. She had just said no. She wasn't looking for one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's true. She did answer that, but he insists. You are cock hungry. Yes, you are.
And then he brings on, I usually am naked when I'm here at home. Lol.
Mm-hmm. Smooth.
Yeah.
Smooth operator. Smooth operator. That's long.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking hell, I don't know. How much fucking more time are we going to talk about this motherfucker? Same time next week, that's what.
That's right.
Yeah, so, right, we're going to have to wrap it up here, guys. Start to feel a bit sick sometimes when you're talking about this particular things. But I'm glad we had a little touch upon the virgin debate and whatnot. Seems to be pretty unanimous, actually. I don't remember seeing anybody in the chat saying he wasn't one. In fact, just before we go, people in the chat, if anybody thinks that Lorne has successfully engaged in the act of sexual intercourse with a female of age, let us know.
Alive.
Yeah, alive, a human female that he didn't pay, that's got sight or had sight at that point and had her and teeth. Well, naturally, no, that's a bit unfair. She can have false in her hair and false teeth, but virgin.
Human, yes, Lens. Human.
Yeah. Not a corpse, like you said. It's got to be alive.
I think the best argument yet is what Amanda said. We would hear about it over and ad nauseum, over and over, and who this person was, and that person would have been the Paula, not Paula.
Yeah, but we also, of course, not to demean what Amanda said, but of course, if he has done it, it's a drunken fumble, and his memory won't be that great. So
You'd remember
there's interesting arguments for both sides, and the sort of fun thing, if not frustrating, is that we will never fucking know ever.
Right.
Because he probably doesn't know himself, so how are we ever going to find out, question every single female that's alive on the planet? Can you imagine just knocking on random people's doors? Hello, you may not know me, but I'll just show you my YouTube channel here. I was just asking everybody in the neighbourhood, have you had sexual intercourse with Lorne Armstrong? No, right, I'll just scratch you off the list, no problem. Thank you very much, Doris.
And who would admit it? Who would admit it anyway? If I got really drunk and accidentally went home with Lorne, I would never admit it. I would lie till the day I died.
I should bloody hope so as well.
Yeah.
your family like showing them the new RSO picture. This is my man. Right here.
Another blow to Lorne. T-Cat recipe.
They'd be
Yeah,
proud.
wait a minute. One more thing. Shoe Nice Deleted Videos X30 has thrown another question out there. Has he ever had a prostitute? Maybe.
No.
He's too cheap.
He's too
And
cheap
that's not
and shy.
romantic.
That too, but also when it comes to diseases, he has this like, even though his behavior that he talks about as far as having one night stands and things like that. He definitely would be afraid of diseases. He does think to a certain degree sex is dirty.
Really? Because I remember when he was talking to Winnie or Casey, he was talking to somebody, but she admitted that she had some kind of STD, maybe herpes.
Oh, yeah, I think it was herpes.
And he was just like, well, don't touch it. You're going to get it infected. Like, he wasn't
Right.
grossed out by it and didn't want to meet up with her.
Yeah,
maybe if it was a stranger,
yeah,
he'd be more
when he's
concerned.
You can't put lotion on your herpes sore by yourself.
Yeah, I think so.
Is that it, Amanda?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Put cream on your own asshole.
Right. Yeah. So I think he
I don't
does
think
have
he cares.
something like that.
I don't think it matters. But I think you're right. I think he never has enough pocket money for the prostitute. But he also falls in love. He wants to fall in love. That's
right. That's what I think. That's why I think he wouldn't hook up with a prostitute.
He
That's
probably
not romantic or intimate enough.
Yeah.
That's not what he wants.
Yeah, I think he'd be too shy as well. Because you've got to have
Yeah,
a certain,
he probably
like...
would be.
Oh, I think I've got the wrong photo up there. I've just got a random photo of that Jesse.
Jesse Velez.
Yeah. There we go. I'll get there in the end. Yeah. So yeah, we've covered some interesting points. It's been humorous and disgusting and disturbing in equal measure, as it always is, talking about this guy, which is one of the reasons why we still years on are talking about the same stuff. And I'm just glad that people still get some entertainment out of it, which is the main thing. Amanda, Shin, and Tiffany, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been fun. And guys in the chat, thank you for dropping in and adding your comments, because otherwise there wouldn't be any point in doing this. So thank you very much. I know there's been a lot of people streaming over the weekend, probably due to lockdown and all that. We're all spending a little bit more time indoors and whatnot. So everybody, thanks so much. I hope you're doing okay. We'll probably might change topics a little bit next week if we do something. I've got a few ideas about something a little bit different to split things up a little bit. So guys, take care of you.
We'll promise 10 lines at least if we do it again. My God, we can't even get through this thing.
I know. But that's a testament to the points that we can. At least it doesn't get too dull. Although we've got things.
Oh, it's fun. It's fun.
So, thanks for joining me, my friends in the stream and everybody in the chat. And Clobber will probably be doing a stream much later on. So I'm sure you'll all be joining in there. And guys, take it easy.